Reflection. Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes in life, the very thing you thought would break you is the thing God will use to build you. Reflection. Sometimes the betrayal that made you cry in the midnight hour is the same betrayal that will position you for destiny. Joseph's story is not just about a coat of many colors. Reflection, it's about the journey of pain shaping purpose. Joseph was chosen. He had a dream, but his dream didn't come wrapped in comfort. It came wrapped in conflict. Reflection. The very people who should have celebrated him hated him. The very brothers who should have protected him betrayed him. The very family that should have covered him stripped him. Reflection. Have you ever been stripped by the people who were supposed to love you? The pit was not the end. It was just the beginning. Because sometimes God allows the pit to prove the promise. Reflection. And while Joseph was down in the pit, heaven was still writing his story. The pit couldn't kill him. The chains couldn't bind him. Potiphar's house couldn't define him. Reflection. Prison couldn't stop him. Because when God puts purpose in you, nothing in hell can take it out of you. Some of you listening right now, you're crying over the pit. Reflection. You're angry about the betrayal. You're frustrated about the prison season. But what you don't see yet is that pain is shaping your purpose. Reflection. Your tears are watering the soil of your destiny. Your rejection is redirecting you to the palace. Joseph went from the pit to the palace, not because everything went right, reflection, but because everything went wrong. And yet, even in what went wrong, God made it right. Don't you know that every painful season in your life has been training ground? Reflection. Every no was preparing you for a bigger yes. Every door that closed was pointing you to the right one that would open. By the time Joseph stood before Pharaoh, reflection, he was no longer the boy with a dream, he was the man with wisdom. Pain had shaped him. Betrayal had matured him. Prison had refined him. And the palace recognized him. Reflection. And when his brothers came back, the same ones who threw him away, Joseph didn't seek revenge, he spoke life. He said, you meant it for evil, reflection, but God meant it for good. That's purpose talking, that's destiny speaking. That's when pain finally bows down to purpose. So today, if you're in the pit, don't lose hope, reflection. If you're in the prison, don't quit. If you've been betrayed, don't give up, because your pain is shaping your purpose. And when you finally walk into your palace season, reflection, you'll look back and realize every tear was worth it, every betrayal was necessary, and every pit was just a step toward your purpose. Dreams attract opposition. Reflection, that is a truth many people overlook. We live in a world where everybody celebrates the idea of dreaming big, but what they don't always tell you is that the moment you start dreaming, reflection, resistance will rise up. The moment Joseph shared his dream with his brothers, instead of applause, he received anger. Instead of support, he received jealousy. His very own family, reflection, the people he trusted became the ones who resented him the most. And this is the same pattern that unfolds in daily life for you and me. When you dare to believe in something greater, reflection, when you dare to see yourself beyond the limits that others have set for you, you will find that not everyone claps for your vision. Think about it in your own life. Reflection. The moment you decided to start that business, the moment you spoke about your idea, the moment you said you wanted to go further than where you are right now. Suddenly, reflection. Some people who once walked with you started questioning you. They asked, who do you think you are? They whispered, reflection. Don't you know people like us don't get opportunities like that? They began to pull away. They looked at you differently, not because you did something wrong, reflection, but because your dream exposed their lack of faith in their own. That's what Joseph faced. His dream did not just speak to his future, it revealed the insecurities of those around him. Reflection, dreams have a way of shining a light on people's hearts. When you dream big, it reminds others of the dreams they buried. Reflection, your courage to speak life into your destiny stirs up the fear in others who have settled for less. And instead of celebrating you, they resist you. Reflection, but here is the part that inspires us. Resistance does not mean your dream is wrong. In fact, resistance is often the proof that your dream is real. If your dream was ordinary, nobody would care. Reflection, if your vision was small, it would not threaten anyone. But the very fact that it shakes people, that it stirs jealousy, that it brings resistance, reflection, is evidence that what you carry inside you is extraordinary. Joseph had to learn early that not everybody could handle his dream. And you too, reflection, must understand that your dream is not for everybody's ears. Some people cannot see beyond today. Some people cannot imagine life beyond the pit. Reflection. And if you keep trying to explain your palace vision to pit-minded people, you will only wear yourself down. Sometimes the dream is meant to be protected in silence until the right season. Reflection. But notice this, though opposition came, Joseph's dream did not die. They stripped his coat, but they could not strip his calling. They threw him in a pit, but they could not bury his purpose. Reflection. And in your own life, people may criticize you, they may mock your faith, they may walk away from you when you choose to rise higher. But their rejection cannot cancel your destiny. Reflection, their doubt cannot erase your vision. Their opposition only proves that there is something inside you worth fighting against. Think about athletes who train for greatness. Reflection, the moment they rise above average, they face more critics, more scrutiny, more pressure. Think about leaders who choose to stand for what is right. They are opposed not because they are wrong, reflection, but because their vision threatens the comfort of others. Even in everyday situations, when someone in a family decides to break generational cycles, to pursue education where others stop, reflection, to build financial stability where others struggled, suddenly the ones who should be cheering them on may become the ones whispering behind their back, reflection. But what they don't realize is that every attack is a sign of the dream's weight, every resistance is proof of its value. Joseph's brothers hated him not because he had done wrong, reflection, because he had seen something greater. Your life will be the same. Sometimes people will dislike you without reason. They will misunderstand your heart, reflection. They will misinterpret your intentions, not because you are wrong, but because your dream unsettles them, reflection. And here is the encouragement. You don't need their validation to walk into your destiny. You don't need their approval to see your dream come to pass. All you need is the faith to keep believing even when others cannot see what you see. When you carry a dream, expect opposition, but don't let it break you. Let it build you. Expect jealousy, reflection, but don't let it distract you. Let it strengthen your focus. Expect rejection, but don't let it silence you. Let it remind you that your voice matters. Every time Joseph was pushed down, reflection, it became another step toward his rising. And every time you face resistance, it is not a wall. It is a signpost pointing you to destiny. So the next time someone doubts you, reflection, the next time someone laughs at your vision, the next time someone opposes your dream, don't let bitterness grow in your heart. Instead, let it serve as fuel. Tell yourself, reflection, if they are fighting me this hard, it must be because what I'm carrying is worth it. Let opposition confirm to you that you are on the right track, reflection. Joseph's story teaches us that dreams attract opposition, but opposition is not the end. It is the beginning of a greater journey. And if you keep holding on, reflection, what others resist today will be the very thing they bow to tomorrow. Betrayal pushes you forward. That is one of the hardest lessons Joseph's story teaches us. When we think about betrayal, reflection, we think about something that breaks us, something that wounds us deeply, something that makes us question our worth and the loyalty of people we trusted. But in Joseph's life, reflection, betrayal was not the end of the story. It was the push that moved him toward destiny. If his brothers had not betrayed him, if they had not thrown him into the pit, reflection, if they had not sold him into slavery, he would have never made it to Egypt. And Egypt was the place where his dream would come alive. What looked like the end was actually the beginning. Reflection, that is the beauty and the pain of betrayal. It hurts, it cuts deep. Joseph must have wondered, how could my own brothers do this to me? How could the ones I love strip me of my coat, reflection, my dignity and my safety? That question echoes in our own lives. How could my friend betray me? How could my spouse walk away? How could my coworker stab me in the back? Reflection, how could people I trusted choose to hurt me? But as hard as it is to accept, sometimes betrayal is the hand that shoves us out of where we were never meant to stay. Reflection, sometimes the rejection of people becomes the redirection of God. Think about the times in your life when you were betrayed. At first it felt unbearable. Reflection, maybe you lost a friendship you thought would last forever. Maybe you were let go from a job you gave your best to. Maybe someone close to you turned against you. In the moment, reflection, it feels like devastation. But as time goes on, you begin to see that the betrayal pushed you out of a place you would have settled in. Reflection, you begin to see that the very pain of being let down created a new hunger, a new determination, a new strength inside you. Reflection, Joseph had to be pushed out of his father's house because if he stayed there, he would never grow into the man he was destined to become. Reflection, betrayal was the vehicle God used to move him into position. This happens in everyday life more often than we realize. A person loses their job unfairly, feeling betrayed by their company. Reflection, at first they feel crushed, but months later they start a business of their own or find a new position that values them more than ever. Reflection, what looked like betrayal was actually the doorway to something greater. A relationship ends in heartbreak, and at first it feels like life is over. But later, reflection, that heartbreak leads them to discover self-worth, strength, and even a healthier relationship they never would have found if the betrayal hadn't happened. Betrayal forces you to move. Reflection, it forces you to grow. It forces you to see who you can be without the crutch of the people you thought you needed. Joseph didn't realize it at first, reflection, but the pit and the sale into slavery were just steps toward the palace. And in your life, reflection, the betrayal you're crying over today may be the very thing that positions you for tomorrow's breakthrough. It's painful to admit, but sometimes people must leave so you can rise. Reflection, sometimes people must turn on you so you can learn to stand on your own. Sometimes you must be rejected by man in order to be accepted into a greater plan. Joseph's betrayal was not fair. Reflection, it was not just, but it was necessary. Without it, there would be no Egypt, no Pharaoh's dream to interpret, no famine to prepare for, and no lives saved. Reflection, the betrayal was not the end of the story. It was the push that began it. So what can we learn from this? Don't curse the betrayal too quickly. Reflection, don't spend all your energy asking why they hurt you. Don't waste your tears over people who walked away. Instead, start asking, what is this betrayal pushing me toward? What door is about to open because someone closed this one? What purpose is being unlocked because of this pain? When you start to see betrayal not as a barrier but as a bridge, reflection, your perspective changes. Joseph didn't understand the pit while he was in it. He didn't understand the chains while he wore them. But years later, when he stood in the palace, reflection, he realized every betrayal had pushed him one step closer to destiny. And when his brothers stood before him, begging for food, Joseph could look them in the eyes and say, reflection, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. That's the moment when betrayal bows down to purpose. Reflection, that's when you see the full circle, that what was meant to break you actually built you, what was meant to crush you actually carried you, what was meant to destroy you actually delivered you. Reflection. So if you're living through betrayal right now, don't despair. Don't give up. Don't think your story is over. The betrayal is not the ending. It's the beginning. It's the push. Reflection. It's the hand moving you towards something bigger than you imagined. You may not see the palace yet, but trust this reflection. One day you will look back and realize that the betrayal you cried over was the very step that led you to where you were always meant to be. The pit is not permanent. Reflection. That's something we all need to hold on to because life has a way of throwing us into dark, lonely, and painful places. Joseph found himself in a pit, not because he did something wrong, reflection, but because of jealousy, betrayal, and hatred. Imagine the confusion in his heart. One day he's wearing the coat of many colors, favored by his father, reflection, walking with dreams burning inside of him. And the next day he's stripped, thrown down into a hole in the ground, left to die by the very people he trusted most. That pit was cold, it was empty, reflection, it was terrifying. And if Joseph had judged his entire future by that one moment, he would have thought his story was over. But the pit was not permanent. It was a place he passed through. Reflection, not a place he was meant to stay. We all face pits in life. Some pits are emotional, deep depressions, moments when you feel like nobody understands. Reflection, seasons when your heart is so heavy you can't even explain the pain. Some pits are financial, times when the bills keep piling up. When you're struggling to make ends meet, reflection, when you don't know how you'll get through the next week. Some pits are relational, broken trust, heartbreak, separation from the people you love, reflection. And some pits are spiritual, when you feel like your prayers aren't being heard, when your faith feels weak, when you're wondering if God even remembers you. In those moments, reflection, it's easy to believe the pit is permanent, that you'll never get out, that this hole is where your story ends. But Joseph's life reminds us that the pit is just a chapter, reflection, not the conclusion. Think about it, Joseph was in the pit, but he wasn't buried. There's a difference between being buried and being planted. When you bury something, reflection is meant to stay under the ground forever. But when you plant something, it goes into the ground for a season, and in time, it rises up stronger, greater, and more fruitful than before. Reflection, Joseph was now buried in that pit. He was planted. You too may feel surrounded by dirt, by darkness, by heaviness. But you are not buried, you are planted. And in due time, you will rise again. Reflection. In everyday life, you see this principle play out. Someone loses everything, a job, a relationship, a home. They feel like they've been thrown into a pit. But years later, reflection, they look back and realize that pit was the moment that taught them resilience. That pit was the place where they discovered their strength. Reflection. That pit was the soil where their greatest growth began. Someone who went through a painful divorce may have thought life was over, but later they found peace, healing, reflection, and even a healthier future they never imagined. Someone who faced bankruptcy may have thought their dreams were destroyed, but later they built a stronger business, reflection, with wisdom they never would have learned otherwise. The pit is never permanent, it's preparation. Joseph had to endure the pit because the pit was part of the path to the palace. Reflection, without the pit, there would be no Egypt. Without the pit, there would be no encounter with Potiphar. Without the pit, there would be no prison, no Pharaoh's dream. Reflection, no elevation to second in command. The pit was not a mistake, it was a step. The same is true in your life. The season you're in right now, no matter how painful, reflection is shaping you for where you're going. It's teaching you endurance, it's giving you wisdom, it's preparing you for opportunities that your comfort zone never could. Reflection, it's easy to think of the pit as punishment. Joseph could have asked, why me? What did I do to deserve this? And you may ask the same questions. But the pit is not punishment, reflection, it's positioning. It's not meant to destroy you, it's meant to direct you. Sometimes God has to allow the pit so that you'll stop clinging to the places you were never meant to stay. Reflection, if Joseph had remained in his father's house, he would have never reached the palace. If you remain in your comfort zone, you'll never step into your destiny. Reflection, the pit pushes you out of comfort and into calling. And remember, no pit lasts forever. Seasons change. Night turns into morning. Winter gives way to spring. That depression, that heartbreak, reflection, that hardship, it won't last always. You are passing through. You may feel stuck, but you are not staying. Reflection, the same God who lifted Joseph out of the pit is the same God who can lift you out of yours. The pit may feel deep, but his arm is longer. The pit may feel dark, but his light still shines. Reflection, the pit may feel lonely, but he is with you even there. So don't give up in the pit. Don't let the darkness convince you that your story is over. Reflection, don't let the silence make you think you've been forgotten. You are not forgotten. The pit is not the final word over your life. It is only a pause, only a passage, only a step. Reflection, and when you rise out of it, you will be stronger, wiser, and closer to your destiny than ever before. Joseph walked out of the pit not as a victim, but as a vessel of purpose. And you too, reflection, will walk out of yours. One day. You will look back on the pit and realize it was never permanent. It was the very thing that prepared you for the palace. Every season has a purpose. Reflection, that is a truth Joseph's story shouts loud and clear. His life was not one straight line of success. It was a series of seasons, some high, some low, some joyful, some heartbreaking. Reflection, one moment he was the favorite son with the coat of many colors. The next he was in the pit. One season he was managing Potiphar's house with honor. The next he was in prison, falsely accused. Reflection, then came the palace, a season of favor, wisdom, and influence. Each season looked different, but each one carried meaning. Not one was wasted. Every season prepared him for the next. Reflection, in our own lives, we often want to skip the hard seasons. We want the palace without the pit, the crown without the cross, the breakthrough without the process. But the truth is, reflection, every season is shaping us. The painful ones refine us, the waiting ones strengthen us, the joyful ones remind us of gratitude, and the successful ones test our humility. Reflection, when Joseph was in Potiphar's house, he learned leadership, discipline, and integrity. When he was in prison, he learned patience, resilience, and faithfulness even when nobody was watching. Reflection, and when he reached the palace, all those lessons came together, making him the man who could carry the weight of ruling a nation. Think about it this way, life is like the four seasons in nature. Reflection, winter feels cold, harsh, and lonely, but it is in winter that roots grow deep. Spring brings new life, new opportunities, new beginnings. Summer is the time of growth and abundance. Reflection, when the seeds planted earlier begin to flourish. Fall is the season of harvest, reaping the results of what was sown. Each season has a role, reflection, and you can't get to harvest without going through winter and spring. Joseph had winters in the pit and prison, springs of new opportunities, summers of responsibility, reflection, and finally the fall of harvest when he was elevated in Egypt. Maybe you are in a winter season right now. Nothing makes sense. Everything feels cold. Your prayers seem unanswered. Reflection. You might feel like Joseph in prison, forgotten and overlooked. But even this season has purpose. It is in the winters of life that our faith grows deeper, that our character is tested. Reflection, that we learn to depend on God and not on circumstances. The silence of winter does not mean nothing is happening. It means preparation is taking place underground, where eyes cannot see. Reflection. Then there are spring seasons when opportunities suddenly open up, when new relationships are formed, when doors you didn't even knock on swing wide. These seasons feel refreshing, reflection, but even they carry responsibility. You must plant the right seeds in spring to reap the right harvest later. If Joseph had not been faithful in Potiphar's house, reflection, he would not have been trusted with the palace. Summer seasons often test us in different ways. These are the seasons when you're managing success, when you're carrying responsibility, reflection, when you're working hard under the heat of expectation. It's easy to get tired in summer, easy to grow weary, but summer is where growth becomes visible. Reflection. Joseph had to endure the heat of temptation in Potiphar's house, where integrity was tested daily. His choice to remain faithful in summer protected his future in the palace. Reflection. And then there's the harvest season, the fall. That is when all the struggles, the faithfulness, the patience finally pay off. Joseph reached his harvest when he stood before Pharaoh. Reflection. Not as a broken man, but as a wise leader. He had the maturity to handle the abundance, to prepare for famine, to save not only Egypt, but also the very brothers who betrayed him. Reflection. Every season built toward that harvest. In your life, you may look at your current season and wonder, why am I here? What's the point of this? Maybe you're in a pit. Reflection. Maybe you're in a prison. Maybe you're in a place of waiting. But just like Joseph, your season is not wasted. The hard seasons teach you strength. The waiting seasons teach you patience. Reflection. The blessed seasons teach you gratitude, and the testing seasons teach you discipline. Every job you've ever worked, every relationship you've ever had, reflection, every challenge you've faced, they all carry lessons that build into the person you are becoming. Sometimes we only understand the purpose of a season when we look back. Reflection. Joseph didn't see the purpose of prison while he was locked inside, but later he realized prison was the doorway to the palace. You may not see it now. Reflection. But one day you will look back on this season and thank God for it. So don't despise your season. Don't waste your time comparing it to someone else's. Reflection. Don't rush through wishing you were somewhere else. Instead ask, what is this season teaching me? What is this moment preparing me for? Because every season has a purpose. Reflection. The pit had a purpose. Potiphar's house had a purpose. The prison had a purpose. And the palace had a purpose. Together, reflection, they shaped Joseph into the man who could carry a nation on his shoulders. And in the same way, every season of your life is shaping you for the purpose that lies ahead. Hold on, stay faithful. Reflection. And trust that even this season is part of your story. God's presence never left him. That is one of the most comforting truths from Joseph's story. Reflection. From the moment he was thrown into the pit to the day he was raised up in the palace, Joseph never walked alone. He may have been rejected by his brothers, falsely accused by Potiphar's wife. Reflection. And forgotten in the prison by many he helped, but he was never forsaken by God. Even when circumstances screamed otherwise, God was there. His presence clothed Joseph like an invisible coat. Reflection. One that could not be stripped away no matter how hard life tried. When Joseph was in Potiphar's house, the Bible says that God was with him. And because of that, reflection, everything Joseph touched prospered. Even in a foreign land, even as a servant in someone else's house, Joseph carried favor because of God's presence. It didn't mean life was easy. Reflection, it meant Joseph was never abandoned. And that is something you and I can hold on to in our darkest moments, in the lowest valleys, in the seasons when people forget about us. Reflection. God's presence still goes with us. Think about your own life. There are moments when you felt completely alone, when it seemed like everyone walked out on you, when the phone stopped ringing. Reflection. When support dried up. Yet somehow you found the strength to keep going. Somehow you made it through nights you thought would break you. Somehow you found peace in the middle of storms. Reflection. That somehow was not luck. It was not coincidence. It was God's presence carrying you when you couldn't carry yourself. Joseph must have cried in that prison cell. Reflection. Wondering why life kept taking turns against him. Yet even there, God's presence was with him, giving him the wisdom to interpret dreams, opening doors at the appointed time. Reflection. This shows us that God's presence is not limited to palaces and good days. His presence shows up in prisons, in pits, in hospitals, in empty bank accounts, in broken relationships. Reflection. Wherever you are, He is there. His presence is not seasonal, it is constant. In daily life, this truth becomes clear when you think about how you've survived. Reflection. Someone who lost their job but somehow never missed a meal, God's presence was there. A mother raising children alone, tired and overwhelmed. Reflection. But still finding strength every morning, God's presence was there. A man battling sickness, yet holding on to hope when doctors gave none. God's presence was there. Reflection. The evidence of His presence is not always in the removal of the storm, but in the strength to stand in the middle of it. Joseph's story reminds us that favor is not tied to location. Reflection. It's tied to God's presence. Whether Joseph was in Potiphar's house or in Pharaoh's palace, he carried favor because God was with him. Reflection. That means you don't need perfect circumstances to thrive. You don't need everyone around you to believe in you. You don't need the approval of people to succeed. Reflection. What you need is God's presence, because His presence is the one thing that can prosper you anywhere. Even in the pit, God's presence was Joseph's unseen protection. Reflection. His brothers wanted to kill him, but God's hand preserved him. In the prison, His presence was Joseph's unseen promotion. making the jailer trust him. Reflection, making his gift visible at the right moment. In the palace, his presence was Joseph's unseen wisdom, giving him the strategy to save nations. Everywhere Joseph went, God was with him. Reflection, and everywhere you go, God is with you too. Sometimes we make the mistake of equating God's presence with comfort. We think that if God is with us, life will be smooth and easy. Reflection, but Joseph's life proves otherwise. God's presence doesn't always keep you out of the pit, but it will keep you in the pit. His presence doesn't always prevent prison. Reflection, but it will favor you in prison. His presence doesn't always stop betrayal, but it will carry you through betrayal. Comfort may come and go, but God's presence remains. Reflection, and here's something powerful. Joseph's awareness of God's presence influenced his decisions. When Potiphar's wife tried to seduce him, Joseph refused, saying, reflection, how could I do this and sin against God? He didn't say, how could I do this and sin against Potiphar? He understood that even though no one else might see, reflection, God's presence was with him. That awareness kept him pure, kept him focused, kept him aligned with destiny. And the same awareness can change how we live today. When you know God is with you, reflection, you make choices differently. You carry yourself with dignity. You refuse to compromise because you know his eyes are on you, his hand is guiding you, and his favor is resting on you. Reflection, everywhere Joseph went, he shined, not because of his environment, but because of who was with him. People may not understand why you keep rising after every fall. Reflection, they may not understand why you smile in seasons when you should be broken. They may not understand why doors open for you that were shut for others. It's not you. Reflection, it's the presence of God in your life. So take courage. No matter what season you're in, you are not alone. Whether you are in your pit, your prison, or your palace, reflection, the same God who walked with Joseph is walking with you. People may walk away, but his presence remains. Circumstances may change, but his presence is steady. Betrayal may wound you, reflection, but his presence will heal you. You don't have to see him to know he is there. Your survival is proof. Your peace in chaos is proof. Your strength to endure is proof. Reflection. Joseph's life testifies that God's presence never left him, and your life will testify the same. One day when you look back on your journey, reflection, you will realize that every step of the way, every valley, every prison, every betrayal was carried by the presence of God. And that presence is still with you right now. Reflection, preparing you for the palace. He has already written into your destiny. Purpose grows through pressure. That is the truth we see shining through Joseph's journey. From the pit to the palace, reflection. Joseph's life was marked by pressure of betrayal, pressure of false accusation, pressure of being forgotten, pressure of carrying responsibility for an entire nation. Reflection. Yet through it all, pressure was not meant to crush him, it was meant to shape him. Pressure has a way of producing something in us that comfort never can. Without pressure, reflection, Joseph would have remained a dreamer boy with visions, but without maturity. Through pressure, he became a leader with wisdom, character, and strength. Reflection. Think about how pressure works in the natural world. A diamond is nothing more than a piece of coal until it goes through years of intense heat and pressure. Reflection. That same pressure that looks destructive is the very force that transforms coal into something rare, valuable, and beautiful. Olive oil comes only when the olive is crushed. Reflection. Gold shines only after it passes through fire. And in the same way, purpose becomes pure and powerful only after we walk through seasons of pressure. Reflection. Joseph's life is proof that greatness does not grow in comfort, it grows in challenges. We see it clearly in the story. When Joseph was in Potiphar's house, reflection, he faced the pressure of temptation. He could have compromised, he could have chosen the easy road, but instead, under that pressure, he chose integrity. When he was in prison, reflection, he faced the pressure of despair, the pressure of being forgotten after he helped the cupbearer. Yet under that pressure, Joseph remained faithful, reflection, using his gift to interpret dreams even when his own dreams seemed delayed. And when he stood before Pharaoh, the pressure was heavier than ever. A whole nation's survival depended on his wisdom, reflection. But because he had endured the pressure of smaller tests, he was ready for the weight of greater responsibility. The same is true in our lives. Many of us pray for purpose, reflection, but we want it without pressure. We ask God to use us, but we want the path to be smooth. We desire promotion, but we don't want preparation. The truth is, reflection. Pressure is the training ground for purpose. That difficult job where you feel overlooked. It's pressure growing your patience and resilience. Reflection. That betrayal you endured, it's pressure teaching you forgiveness and strength. That season of financial struggle, it's pressure shaping your discipline and wisdom. Without those moments, reflection, you would not be able to carry the weight of the destiny ahead of you. Think about everyday examples. A student preparing for exams feels the pressure of long nights and endless study. Reflection. but that pressure is shaping knowledge and endurance that will serve them in the future. An athlete training for competition feels the pressure of pain, sweat, and sacrifice. Reflection. But that pressure builds muscles, skills, and mental toughness needed for the big stage. A single parent raising children under financial strain feels the daily pressure of responsibility. Reflection. Yet through that pressure, strength is built, values are taught, and character is formed in both parent and child. Reflection. The very situations that feel like they're crushing us are often the ones that grow us the most. Joseph's brothers stripped him of his coat, but they couldn't strip him of his calling. Reflection. Potiphar's wife lied about him, but she couldn't lie away his destiny. The prison held him for a season, but it couldn't hold back his purpose. Why? Reflection. Because the pressure was not destroying him, it was building him. And when the palace finally opened, Joseph walked in with the strength of every season behind him. Reflection. His wisdom in interpreting Pharaoh's dream came from years of trusting God under pressure. Reflection. His ability to forgive his brothers came from years of choosing character over bitterness under pressure. Reflection. His strategy to save a nation came from years of learning stewardship in smaller places under pressure. This is why we should not despise pressure in our lives. Reflection. Pressure means God is preparing something inside of you that cannot be developed any other way. It may feel heavy, it may feel unfair, it may feel unbearable at times, but it is not wasted. Reflection. Every tear, every trial, every lonely night is doing something in you, building resilience, shaping faith, strengthening character. Without it, your purpose would remain immature. With it, reflection, your purpose grows strong enough to bless others. Joseph went from being a dreamer to being a deliverer, and the bridge between the two was pressure. Reflection. He was not the same young boy bragging about dreams when he stood in the palace. He had been refined, matured, and strengthened through years of trials. And in the same way, reflection, you will not remain who you are right now. The pressure you're facing today is molding you into the person you need to be tomorrow. So the next time you feel overwhelmed by pressure, reflection, remind yourself it's not here to destroy you, it's here to grow you. It's not here to bury you, it's here to build you. Diamonds don't shine without pressure, reflection, and neither will your purpose. Joseph endured it all, and in the end, he stood in the place God promised, stronger and wiser because of the journey. And one day, reflection, you too will look back and see that the very pressure that once made you cry was the very thing that shaped your calling and launched you into your destiny. Patience prepares the platform for purpose. Reflection. If Joseph's story teaches us anything, it is that waiting is not wasted time. We often live in a world that glorifies speed. We want instant answers, instant success, instant recognition. Reflection. But the truth is, the deepest purposes are never discovered in a hurry. They are revealed in the waiting. Joseph had a dream at 17, but he did not step into that dream until years later. Reflection. Those years in between were filled with waiting. Waiting in a pit, waiting in Potiphar's house, waiting in prison. Reflection. Yet each season of waiting was shaping him for the platform of leadership that awaited him. Waiting is not easy. It is uncomfortable. Reflection. It feels like being stuck in the hallway with every door closed. It feels like silence when you are desperate for direction. But patience is more than just sitting still. Patience is active trust. Reflection. It is continuing to work, to serve, to grow, even when you cannot see the results yet. Joseph did not waste his waiting. In Potiphar's house, reflection, he worked faithfully and rose to a position of trust. In prison, he used his gift of interpretation to serve others, even when his own dreams seemed delayed. His patience was not passive reflection, it was purposeful. Think about how patience works in everyday life. A seed planted in the soil does not sprout overnight. It takes time hidden underground, unseen, reflection before it pushes through the surface. If you dig it up too soon, you kill the growth. The same is true with purpose. The waiting season is like that underground time. Reflection. Something is happening even if you cannot see it. Roots are growing deep, strength is being developed, character is being formed. Without patience, reflection, we would try to rush the process and end up unprepared for the very things we prayed for. Consider a student dreaming of a career. They cannot jump straight into success without years of study, reflection, exams, and practice. The waiting teaches discipline, knowledge, and endurance. Well, think about a mother carrying a child. She cannot rush the 9 months of pregnancy. Reflection, the baby needs time to develop. In the same way, purpose has a gestation period. You may feel like you are in delay, but you are actually in development. Reflection, what looks like waiting is really preparation. Joseph's patience showed us something powerful. Just because it takes time doesn't mean God has forgotten you. Reflection, when Joseph helped interpret the dreams of the cupbearer and baker, he asked the cupbearer to remember him before Pharaoh. But the man forgot about him. Reflection. For 2 more years, Joseph remained in prison. Imagine how discouraging that must have felt. Forgotten by men, overlooked again. But Joseph's patience did not break. He waited, reflection, and at the right time, Pharaoh had a dream that no one else could interpret. Suddenly, Joseph was remembered. Suddenly, the doors opened, reflection. But here is the lesson. If Joseph had been released 2 years earlier, he might have found himself free, but still without the platform to fulfill his purpose. Reflection. It was patience that placed him in the right position at the right time. This truth connects deeply with our daily lives. Many of us want breakthrough instantly, reflection, but sometimes God allows the delay to align the timing. That job you did not get may have been protection, because the right one is still coming, reflection. That relationship that ended may have felt painful, but patience is preparing you for someone better, reflection. That dream that has not yet come to pass is not denied, it is simply waiting for the right moment. Patience is not punishment, it is preparation, reflection. The beauty of patience is that it develops qualities we cannot gain any other way. It teaches us humility because we realize we are not in control of the timetable. It teaches us trust, reflection, because we have to lean on God's timing rather than our own. It teaches us strength because waiting stretches our endurance. And when the moment of purpose arrives, we are ready, reflection, not just outwardly but inwardly. Think about the farmer who plants a field. He cannot rush the harvest. He must wait for rain, sunshine, and the right season. Yet when harvest comes, reflection, it is abundant and worth the wait. Or think about the athlete recovering from injury. They cannot rush back to the game too quickly, or they risk long-term damage. They must be patient, reflection, allowing healing to take place so that when they return, they are stronger. These examples mirror Joseph's life and remind us that patience is not weakness. It is wisdom, reflection. When Joseph finally stood before his brothers years later, he did not see them with bitterness. Patience had softened his heart. Patience had given him perspective. He could say with confidence, reflection, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. That kind of perspective does not come from rushing, it comes from waiting. It comes from enduring the long nights, the unanswered questions, reflection. The seasons of silence until you realize the delay was never denial. It was direction. Patience is the quiet classroom where purpose is taught. It is the furnace where character is refined. Reflection. It is the bridge that carries us from the dream to the destiny. Without patience, Joseph could not have carried the weight of his calling. With patience, reflection, he stepped into it at the exact moment he was needed. So in your own life, do not despise the waiting season. Do not rush what is still being formed. Trust that patience is working for you, reflection, not against you. Every day you remain faithful in the small things. Every moment you choose trust over frustration, you are building the foundation for your future. One day, just like Joseph, reflection, you will see that patience was not wasted. It was the very thing that prepared you for the platform of your purpose. Forgiveness frees your future. Reflection. Joseph's story is a shining example of how holding on to bitterness can keep you stuck in the pain of the past, but forgiveness opens the door to the destiny ahead of you. Reflection. When Joseph finally stood face to face with the very brothers who betrayed him, sold him into slavery, and caused him years of suffering, he had every reason to repay them with anger. Reflection. He could have chosen revenge. He could have allowed bitterness to dictate his actions. But instead, Joseph chose forgiveness. Reflection. That decision was not just about freeing his brothers from guilt. It was about freeing himself from the chains of resentment so he could fully embrace his purpose. Forgiveness is not easy. Reflection. It is one of the hardest things we are ever asked to do because it goes against our natural desire for justice. Our hearts cry out, they hurt me, reflection, so they deserve to hurt too. But the problem is that unforgiveness becomes a prison of its own. It ties your emotions to the pain, and as long as you hold on to it, you cannot move forward. Reflection. Forgiveness does not mean you forget what happened or pretend the pain never existed. It means you release the right to revenge. You choose not to let the offense control your future. Reflection. And you decide that your destiny is too important to be chained to bitterness. Think about Joseph's situation. His brothers not only betrayed him, they changed the entire course of his life. Reflection. Because of them, he endured slavery, false accusations, and years in prison. Yet when the tables turned and Joseph had the power to punish them, he wept instead of retaliating. He told them, reflection, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. That statement shows the incredible power of forgiveness. Joseph saw beyond the pain and recognized the purpose. Reflection. He realized that holding on to bitterness would not change the past, but forgiveness would redeem it. In our daily lives, we face smaller versions of this same test. Reflection. Maybe a friend betrayed your trust. Maybe a co-worker spread lies about you. Maybe a family member wounded you with their words. The sting is real, and the temptation to hold a grudge is strong. Reflection. But think about how unforgiveness works in those situations. You replay the hurt over and over in your mind, keeping the wound open. you lose peace because every time you see that person, reflection, the anger resurfaces. It doesn't damage them, it damages you. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is like setting down a heavy backpack you've been carrying for years. The weight lifts, flexion, and suddenly you can move forward again. Consider everyday examples. A couple going through marriage struggles often finds that bitterness builds walls higher than any mistake ever could. Reflection. But when forgiveness enters, healing begins, and love can grow again. A child hurt by a parent may carry resentment into adulthood, allowing it to shape their choices and relationships. Reflection. But when that child chooses forgiveness, they reclaim control of their future and stop letting the past dictate their life. Even in workplaces, reflection. When people forgive colleagues instead of holding grudges, the atmosphere shifts from toxic to productive. Forgiveness is not weakness, it is power. Reflection. Joseph's forgiveness not only healed his heart, but also preserved his purpose. Imagine if he had chosen revenge instead. Reflection. He might have destroyed the very family line that would one day bring about great nations. His bitterness could have cut off the blessing that was meant to flow through him. Instead, by forgiving, reflection, he positioned himself as a channel of provision and hope, feeding the same brothers who once tried to destroy him. Reflection. Forgiveness allowed him to step into a larger purpose than just his own healing. It allowed him to impact generations. The same is true for you. Forgiveness is not just about today. Reflection, it's about tomorrow. When you forgive, you refuse to let the pain of the past poison your future. You choose to open yourself to growth, love, and opportunity. Reflection. Unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. But forgiveness is like drinking living water and allowing your soul to heal. Reflection. It's important to remember that forgiveness is not always a one-time event. Sometimes, especially with deep wounds, it's a daily decision. Each time the memory resurfaces, reflection, you choose again to release it. Over time, that choice weakens the grip of bitterness until it no longer has power over you. Joseph likely had to wrestle with his own emotions before reaching that moment of forgiveness with his brothers. But when he finally released the pain, his future opened wide before him. Reflection. Even in small moments, we can see the power of forgiveness. Think about a child who has a fight with a friend. The anger feels strong at first, but when they forgive, reflection, the friendship often becomes stronger than before. Or think about someone who forgives themselves for past mistakes. Self-forgiveness is just as powerful, reflection, because it allows us to stop living in shame and start living in growth. Reflection, forgiveness, whether toward others or ourselves, removes barriers that keep us from stepping into who we were meant to be. When Joseph forgave his brothers, he demonstrated something timeless. Reflection. Forgiveness is not about what they deserve, it's about who you are becoming. By letting go, you rise higher than the hurt. You grow stronger than the betrayal. Reflection. And you align yourself with the bigger story that is unfolding in your life. Without forgiveness, Joseph could have remained trapped in bitterness, but with forgiveness, reflection, he stepped fully into his destiny as a leader, a provider, and a man of purpose. So if you are holding on to pain today, ask yourself, is it worth your future? Reflection. Is the weight of bitterness worth the price of your peace? Forgiveness is not saying that what happened was okay. It is saying that your life is too valuable to be controlled by the past. Reflection. Joseph's story proves that forgiveness doesn't just heal your heart, it sets you free to walk into your calling. Your purpose is waiting on the other side of forgiveness. Reflection. And the moment you choose to release the offense, you will find that forgiveness has been the key unlocking the door to your destiny all along.